History and Appreciation of Art and Design assignment presented by Lisa Waters. I delivered this scheme to a group of 5th years in Grange Post-Primary, County Sligo. After a conversation with my co-op teacher, who was finished with Suzanne, she informed me she wanted me to cover Cubism, focusing primarily on Picasso. The rationale for this art history scheme was to teach the fundamental aspects of Cubism through the study of the main founder Pablo Picasso and his two famous artworks, Guernica and Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. This scheme was taught over 4 single classes. Aims of the scheme: develop an understanding of Cubism period and how it influenced 20th century art. Briefly explore the different art periods. Be able to discuss and analyze Picasso's most famous artworks. Understand the key symbols and concepts within Picasso's artworks. Understand how to read and answer a Leaving Cert question on Cubism. Teaching and learning strategies. Group discussions and questioning was encouraged to gain confidence within the students in discussing artwork and developing their ability to critique artwork with a clear understanding of concepts and ideas. Keyword chart, worksheets, question sheets were also used to focus the students during videos and group activities. A keyword chart aided students in learning words associated with Cubism and remained on the wall throughout the scheme. Class discussions and review of homework were also used. As I knew the group were poor to complete homework, I informed them that I would pick 2 students at random to read out their homework the following day. This strategy seemed to work, as it was very effective. Special educational needs. There are no students in this class with a diagnosed special education needs. For students who found concepts and new language difficult, I used worksheets and key charts, ensuring the students had the visuals in conjunction with the topic being discussed. Methods and resources. PowerPoints were used to show visual examples. Videos were also used throughout the scheme to learn about the paintings in a more visual way. Their art history book was to aid their study further while filling out homework worksheets. Homework was given to reinforce key concepts to practice illustrating the paintings. Questioning was a way to formatively assess the learning throughout the scheme. I also used question sheets during the videos to focus and engage the students. These question sheets could also be used as a revision aid. Lesson 1. Explore the early life of Picasso and his blue period, rose period and synthetic period. In-depth study into the life of Picasso, looking at his early work, looking at his influences, themes and styles. Be able to analyze and discuss concepts and symbols within his famous artwork Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. The lesson began with an introduction to Cubism, followed by a 20-minute video piece looking at an educational BBC documentary with a question sheet to fill out. The documentary covered Picasso's early life, his relationships with women and his art periods, leading up to Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. After the documentary, I used the projector to display the image of the painting and had a group discussion. We discussed Picasso's influences seen throughout the painting, the figures presented and the multiple viewpoints of the painting. I created a question sheet as I was aware the video was long. This was to keep them engaged and to listen to the documentary attentively. After the documentary had finished, I asked them how they found the worksheets, and they all agreed that they felt that they'd learned more filling out the questions. I was conscious that I had a lot of questions on the sheet and asked if it was too many, but they said it was just enough. I asked them will I continue with the worksheets for the next video, and they agreed that it would help. My co-op teacher observed all my art history classes and will be implementing this strategy in her videos. These are the question sheets that aided our discussion after the video piece. The class discussion is an important strategy. As a group, we discussed the symbols and imagery within the painting. Having the image on the projector allowed the group to visually see what the group was discussing. They also had their books open on the painting so that they could get an in-depth see of what the painting was about. I started with a lower range question to the shy, weaker students, and then to a higher order question to the stronger students. I felt it was important to allow all students' voices to be heard and their opinions to be heard throughout the class, as I am a strong believer on peer learning. I created a worksheet for homework where they had to discuss and draw the painting Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. As you can see, I had a varied amount of writing from all students, but from correcting the homework they all had the main points covered, and I was happy to move on to my next lesson material. I felt the students put in good effort into the drawing. I left small comments on everyone's homework, but gave general feedback at the beginning of the next class. This feedback consisted of remembering to annotate their drawing, spending 2 minutes or longer on shading and tonal work to give their image a more finished look, and for the written part to consider the influence that Picasso had in the painting. Lesson 2. Understand the effects of Cubism and how it affected fashion and architecture design of the 20th century. In-depth study of the symbolism contained in Pablo Picasso's Guernica. Analyze Guernica under the following points: colour, composition, mood, and what the painter was trying to communicate. Be able to identify the key character in the Guernica. Understand the key words and concepts related to Cubism. The second part of the documentary looked at Cubism affected the fashion and architecture world. It then went on to analyse Guernica. Lesson 2 began with 2 students reading out their homework and a quick review of key words learned in the previous lesson. We then watched the documentary using question sheets. The documentary went into how Cubism influenced fashion and architecture. It also discussed how Picasso's life had changed after becoming world famous. It also went into detail of how and why Guernica was created. Afterwards, I displayed an image of Guernica on the projector to aid the group discussion and questioning. My co-op teacher had suggested I ask higher order questions to the weaker students and to leave them to think about it and come back to them. This technique only worked if I prompted the weaker students after sufficient wait time. I do believe it's important to challenge the students and was grateful for my co-op teacher's feedback. Since I was constrained for time, I wasn't able to show the complete documentary, but passed on the link to my co-op teacher to send on to the students. The documentary broke down the different symbols when painting of Guernica. The documentary also explained how meaningful the painting was to not just Picasso but the world, as it was such a powerful symbol of the destruction that came with war. The painting, I felt, hit home with the students, more than Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, as they understood it had representation of today's civilian suffering. I felt the students could understand the subject matter more, and the discussions didn't need as much prompting from me as a teacher. I gave homework on the painting Guernica, where they had to discuss the drawing and painting. I was disappointed with the amount of writing the students wrote, as they had access to the art history books and seemed more engaged with the painting in the previous lesson. From this, I decided to spend more time reinforcing the different symbols of Guernica in the next class, and explained how it was important to complete homework, as these worksheets are a great resource for revision. As the painting was more detailed, I felt the efforts were poor due to this fact. As I have the group for a drawing scheme, I knew there was a high drawing standard within the group. I again reinforced the importance of spending 2 minutes to add shading and different levels of contrast, as the leaving cert question may reward 5 or 10 marks depending on the marking scheme. Be able to analyse and discuss as a group key elements of the 2 paintings covered last week, under the points symbolism, technique, subject matter and style. Be able to identify and understand the leaving certificate question on Cubism. Be able to communicate their opinion on key concepts learned throughout the class presentation. For lesson 3, I got 2 students to read out their homework. I then explained the group activity. For the group activity, I divided the group into 2 groups of 3. I made sure there was a strong student in both groups. I gave them the task of one student being the museum tour guide and the other two students as tourists to ask questions on the painting. The group would then present in front of the class with the image of the painting displayed on the projector. This activity freaked out a few students, so I allowed them to bring up notes while presenting. I felt the students enjoyed the activity and we had the students perform. I felt one group in particular, the dynamic meant the strong student was the tour guide. He described the painting in great detail, leaving the 2 students with nothing to ask, as he had answered them all. I feel I would assign the students their roles next time. The Leaving Cert questions was an important part of my scheme as I feel it was important for a student to fully understand what is being asked from them. We went through different questions that can be asked using Picasso and two of his paintings. Looking back in this class, I should have had the group activity after this discussion, as I ran out of time and I feel I could have taken time off the group activity. I gave the fifth years 25 minutes to answer the question, and we discussed briefly how they felt. This was a way of assessing their learning. A lot of them struggled to start the essay and to conclude, so I feel the skill to writing an essay could have been implemented in the scheme if I had more time. As I did note, a few students wasted a lot of time at the beginning trying to get their essay started. For the last 10 minutes, I asked the short questions orally from their art history book on what they had learned in the last 3 classes. There was a reward with chocolate and found unsurprisingly this was a huge motivator to get students to answer questions quickly and effectively. This was a nice way to finish the scheme as I felt they had worked hard and participated in all classes. I found the Leaving Cert art history question rubric helpful when assessing the students' exams. I found that some students lacked essay writing skills. Here are results from the exam. As you can see, you can clearly see a high, medium and low categories. One student failed but was absent for most of my scheme. This really awakened me to how much has to be covered in the art history course, and missing 2 days could mean to miss a big chunk of an important movement. If I had more time, I would have allowed the student to resit his exam. I decided it was a good practice to log the results of all homework and essay results, to note a student's progress. Here you can see the students' results. I also felt it was important to take into consideration the students' participation in class discussion and group activities. I also felt it was important for the student to see their progress and where they need to improve. If I had the opportunity to do this scheme again, I would map out Picasso's timeline. I would also map out how to answer a cubist question. I would also spend time on how to illustrate a painting quickly and effectively, as most students forgot to annotate where to give feedback. I feel that demonstration may have stuck in their minds better than a feedback answer on their homework. I also would improve on my time management skills as I ran out of time discussing and analysing the Leaving Cert question. I felt using question sheets throughout the videos was a very effective strategy as well as a classroom discussion. Overall, I learned so much and was a valuable experience teaching art history. Thank you for watching.